Downtown Church. Oh, United Church. So we'll give 10 minutes.
Okay. So apparently some of you have discovered that we have two buildings. One is Trinity United Church, and you all found it. And the other one is called Trinity Downtown. Some of you found the downtown church, and you are currently making your way to the main church. So we're going to allow for those folks to get here and get settled. So you've got about 10 minutes. But I'm going to do this a little bit now. I'll do it again in, I guess, about 10 minutes. Welcome to Trinity. If you've been here before, that's great. If you see somebody looking dazed and confused about where to find something, please help them. If you're wondering where the washrooms are, they're straight out these doors and right across the narthex, right across the entranceway there. There's three. There's one that's for families or any gender identity or expression. There's one for those who identify and express as female, and one for those who identify and express as male. When we get to the food part, the really exciting part, the food part, it's just here behind me. There's another hall there, and that's the food's going to be set up for you to gather what you need, and then move into the hall there to share a table with one another. So we're going to give you about another, I guess now we're 7 minutes. I should mention that if you know folks who wanted to be here but couldn't be here, that everything is being recorded this afternoon and live streamed through our various socials and website. If you want to find the archive afterwards, if you go to trinitypg.ca, you'll be able to find it there. So we'll make sure we post it there tomorrow for anybody who's not here. Or if you go, somebody said something and I thought it was really great, but I don't really know who said it, but I know I need to go find it again. I have moments like that. That's one of the other reasons to post the archive, so you can go back and watch the comments all over again. So now you got about 6 minutes. So if you need to go take an all-purpose break, whatever that break or purpose is for you, then you got about 5 minutes to do it.
Coffee's ready if you want to go and get
And coffee's ready if you want to go get coffee. There's no question mark in that for me. It's not a if you want to go get coffee, it's that thou shalt go get coffee. I think if there was an 11th commandment, that's what it would be. So just out this way and you can go get some coffee.
हेलो हेलो ठीक ठीक नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ौज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम I request all the speakers to please come and take their seats.
Want me to welcome everybody one more time?
What is it?
Oh, can I just welcome folks one more time now that the
Yeah, sure.
stragglers have arrived? All right, so we're about ready to start. Again, my name is Reverend Dr. Bob Fillier. I'm the lead minister here at Trinity United Church. It's my privilege on behalf of our board and faith community to welcome you here to our World Religion Conference around combating racism. Just a heads up that everything we're doing here this afternoon is going to be recorded and broadcast, live streamed, and then posted as an archive. If you know folks that wanted to be here but couldn't be here, or if you want to kind of rewatch and go, well, what was it they really said? Then you'll be able to do that tomorrow. You'll just have to go to trinitypg.ca and you'll be able to find it there. If you've never been in our space before, then washrooms are out over here to my right or your left. There are 3 of them. One of them is gender and identity neutral, so whoever wants to use it lines up and uses it. The other one is for those who identify and express as female, and the other one is for those who identify and express as male. You're welcome to use any of those 3. There was coffee out here behind me. There's still coffee out there behind me because I just went and got some because they topped it up. So if you want to make a run for it, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy the conference. I know some of these folks. They're pretty amazing humans in their own right. So you're going to put us all together in one room and ask us to talk about religion. This could be a whole lot of fun. On that note, I'm going to go find my seat.
So, in order to formally begin, I would request Mr. Waqas Chima to come for the recitation from the Holy Book, Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين
I would now present the translation of the verses recited by Mr. Waqas Chima. These are the very opening verses of the Holy Quran. And the translation in English is, "In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Master of the day of judgment, you alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray." Thank you. Now I would request Mr. David Coleman, President, the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to come to the stage, to come to the podium for the welcome remarks. Please.
I don't think so, he's here, so you can skip the next one.
Okay. So, the chief of the Lednitane Nation, Chief Donald Logan,
Unable to come.
she too, because of her pressing engagements, could not come, and she is represented by her counselor. Please.
I'm not a counselor, I'm an elder. Howdy and good afternoon. It is my pleasure on behalf of our elders, members, council, and our administration to welcome you to the Lheidli T'enneh unceded territory. I want to thank the organizers of the 17th World Religions Conference for inviting our nation to be a part of this important gathering. The key topic, combating racism, is very important to the Indigenous Canadians, especially with the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation this Friday. It is a day to remember the thousands of kids who died while attending residential schools across the country. It is a day to remember the survivors, intergenerational survivors, and their families. It was a racist government policy that allowed residential schools to be established in the 1800s. And it is racist government policy that allowed them to exist until the 1900s. We have experienced racism at every level since Canada became a nation. We experienced institutional racism in every public institution today. I applaud you for gathering to discuss how to combat racism. I believe this is the first priority for all of us to focus on in the next few years. We cannot achieve reconciliation if we are not still combating racism. Thank you for inviting us.
We have a message from the respected Mayor of Prince George, and that message would be presented by the councillor on behalf of the Mayor. So I request Councillor, respected Corey Ramsey, to come to the podium and deliver the message, please.
Good afternoon and welcome, dear friends. I would like to start by respectfully acknowledging that we are gathered today on the unceded ancestral lands of the Lheidli T'enneh, on whose lands which we live, work, play, and I'll add learn as well today. My name is Corey Ramsey. I'm a counselor with the City of Prince George, and I've asked to join you as your moderator, but also bring words on behalf of Mayor and Council. Today marks the 17th World Religions Conference, and over the years, the conference has tackled some very big topics, such as contributions of religion to world peace, the object of man's creation, root causes of poverty and homelessness, reconciling the existence of God and human suffering, absolute justice and kinship, and the existence of God, myth, or reality. These are incredibly challenging, controversial topics, and this year is no different, with the conference choosing combating racism as this year's theme. We are living in an era where polarization is rampant, and I believe the themes of this year's conference are more important than ever. Today, we will be exploring the teachings and practices of different religions and philosophical traditions, with the hope that such mutual exploration will encourage better understanding and promote harmonious coexistence among the members of Canada's cultural mosaic. So I want to say on behalf of the city and on behalf of Mayor Hall and my council colleagues, thank you for continuing to build community and create a safe space for these very important discussions. I look forward to hearing what each of our speakers has to say about combating racism.
So, Mr. David Coleman, the president of the Church of the Jesus Christ of the Latter Saint Day, was not able to come for some reason, but we have a representative here, Mr. John Duncan. So I would request Mr. John Duncan to please come for the introductory remarks.
I wasn't expecting to have to do this year. I have spoken to President David Coleman, who's the president, the area representative for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He offers his regrets. He's had something come up at the last moment and he cannot come. But he asked that I speak for a minute on his behalf. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a proud sponsor and helper in this conference. We welcome the topic, combating racism, and we look forward to hearing from the various speakers here today. We know that these various faiths are representative of our community, but they also have remarkable traditions that help us remember that we are all God's children, regardless of what our background is, regardless of where we come from in the world. God is with us, and He'll be here with us today. And I just want to say welcome on behalf of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I look forward to hearing from our various representatives. Thank you.
I would now request the regional coordinator for the BC region for Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, Mr. Rizwan Pirzada, to come to the podium for the introductory remarks and for the introduction of the moderator, Mr. Rizwan Pirzada.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to spending your precious time with us. It's always good to see good numbers when attend the program and benefit the topic that we decide mutually what should be in every event. These are the events started long before I was born, and by the grace, it's growing every day by day. So my respected ladies and gentlemen, starting with the peace and the mercy of God and blessing be upon you. On the behalf of Ahmadiyya Muslim community and our respected partner, it is our honor to welcome you in this World Religion Conference, Prince George. The history of this conference started from 2004, when we hosted the first event in Canfor Theatre in UNBC. In first few beginning, attendance was overwhelmed. That encouraged us to continue this tradition of hosting a conference in your city. And by the way, your city was the first one we went outside of Vancouver to host an event. And after that, it took off, and we choose 18 different cities to host this World Religion Conference that include Yellowknife, Whitehorse, Inuvik also, and Taktoetak also. But we have reduced to 5 now because it was too many events and it was hard for us. So we'd like to continue this tradition by inviting scholars from different religions and present you the different topics that relate to us day by day. And combating racism is one of the topics that's really highlight in our life. We do see it. Someone is suffering from this racism. We fight back. We try to enhance our life, but sometimes we don't have the answer. So today we have an opportunity to hear these answers from our worthy scholar from the different religion. I'm happy to also see for first time the Jewish speaker is also in our panel. So welcome for first time in our conference. So I'd like to appreciate by that. Finally, we have another of our brothers and sister religion among us. We had it almost in every city. Even in Whitehorse we have it. But somehow in Prince George we never had a Jewish speaker. We did bring from Vancouver a few times, but sometimes very hard to find because community is much more engaged in different activities and it takes a lot of energy to convince them, no, okay, Prince George is a beautiful city. But we did convince sometime. Other time we were just struggled. Anyhow, thank you very much being with us. And now I'll introduce our moderator. I'm very happy that among us is a very charming and beautiful lady. And I'm always welcome when I see such kind of personalities, those have the passion for these kind of event and help us to promote this event. So with a short introduction, I will do it because I think you are much more eager to hear from them than me. And I also like to listen from them. Though someone I know for a long time, that Dr. Parnish Kumar, I know him since 2004. We had a very good, lasting, good friendship, and I always appreciate his friendship and his love for these events. And then Charlotte also kind of partnered with us for a number of years now, and I'm happy that the Baha'i religion going along with us, and we invite in almost every event that we host in different city, including Whitehorse again. Now I'll introduce the moderator. Councillor Corey Ramsey has lived in Prince George for the last 16 years and is proud to call the region home. In 2010, she graduated from University of Northern British Columbia with a Bachelor of Arts in English and is currently working on the graduate diploma on public relations through the University of Victoria. Upon graduation, Ramsey started work in the financial services industry and spent the last several years working in marketing and strategic communications. New to politics, Ramsey grew up living in poverty and passionate about making a difference in the lives of those she served. In 2017, she gave a TEDx talk titled Poverty and the Power of the Living Wage. And in 2018, the Prince George Chamber of Commerce named her the top 40 under 40. I don't know what that means. On being elected, she said, it's an incredible honor to serve the people of the Prince George, and I look forward to the next 4 years learning and growing to make our community the best it can be. So with this short introduction, thank you very much, and I welcome moderator to start the event. Now it's all her, to control this.
Thank you so much, Rizwan. We'll just give him a round of applause. And congratulations on stepping into your new role. So we're very excited for you. So we are going to get started, and we're going to go through each of our presenters are going to present for about 10 minutes. I'm going to time them to make sure we have enough time for questions at the end. Speakers are requested to speak on the topic from their religious perspectives, philosophical and religious traditions, and holy books. Speakers are requested not to make any comparisons with other faiths and only speak with reference to their own faith. Speakers are requested to be present maybe I'll add that we'll request that our audience also remain present during the conference, and we'll have our speakers available for questions and answers at the end, although we might have, some of them might have to leave because of their religious holidays. And speakers, let me just, we will have the refreshment break at the end. As you came in, or if you haven't already got it, you should have 2 cards. The first is a question card, the blue form. So if you have a question for one of our speakers, you can please fill it out, and you can bring it up here and I'll read it out at the end, or you can hand it to Rizwan as well. And there's also a religious conference survey form. So if you could fill that out for the conference, they would be greatly appreciative of that. All right, so we are going to head into our first speaker. We're going to be hearing from Miss Charlotte Weninger from the Baha'i perspective. So Charlotte has been a member of the Baha'i community for over 35 years. She has served for many years as one of the elected 9 members of the local governing body of the Baha'is of Prince George. She has served as chairman of the Interfaith Chaplaincy Committee at UNBC almost since its inception. She's married and has raised 4 daughters and now has 7 grandchildren. Charlotte has a keen interest in sharing her religion with others and learning about all aspects of spirituality, especially the science behind spiritual reality. So please join me in welcoming Charlotte from the Baha'i perspective.
Very much, Carol. Welcome, everyone. Is that okay, Gail? You? I just wanted to thank our host, Bob, and allowing us to be present here in your church, and thank you very much for that warm welcome. And also to acknowledge the lands that we're living on, Clay Tene lands, and thank you very much for the Amadeus Society. I just also wanted to mention my thanks to the Baha'i community of Prince George, who puts their faith in me every single year. We do not have pastors or priests in our faith, so we kind of nominate somebody who could speak on our behalf. So thank you very much for putting that kind of faith in me. Okay, so I have somebody flipping their slides for me. More than a century ago, so this would be in the middle 1800s, Baha'u'llah declared that humankind was entering in a new era in history, which would soon compel recognition that humanity is a single people with a common destiny. Thank you. Okay. Baha'u'llah appealed to humanity to accept that central truth of its oneness and to set aside the barriers of race, religion, and nationality. And he urges us all to regard ye not one another as strangers. Ye are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. So he said that to us in the middle 18th century, and we're still learning. He went on to say that there is no possibility of achieving world peace until the fundamental principle of unity has been accepted. The well-being, he says, of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. Oh, can you just move it? Thank you. This is a really good point because quite often we think, well, yeah, unity is, yeah, that's important, but we have the climate change and then we have the poverty and we have everything else to work on. And Baha'u'llah said, no, that's not how it works. You have to establish unity. Once we establish unity, we'll be able to work together and to work on all of the other issues we have. So this is a very important point, and it needs to be meditated on, especially with topics like this. Thank you. Okay, so racism. Racism is a symptom of a long-standing illness. There is no basis for the state or the idea of the division of the human race. It is a social construct. Current science tells us the differences among people are not even as great as they may seem. It is a social construct. It is systemic and a reality embedded in our consciousness and culture. It has no real basis. It is a spiritual disease. No one is immune, and we are all members of this racialized, this is a racialized society, and our elder spoke of that. And we could go on for many, many hours to talk about the history of racism here in Canada, and this is a racialized society. And no one is immune from the effects of racism, and some are affected more than others. So this is a historic time. I know anybody who reads the news and watches what's going on in the world, this is a historic time. Our consciousness has been stirred. If it hasn't already, it is certainly now. So we have a choice among us. We can live within the chaos, or we can take this as a profound and use it to have this profound alteration of thought and action. The most important thing we can do today is to acknowledge that there is a problem, because this, I believe this talk here is about solutions. So the most important thing we can do now is to acknowledge that there is a problem. Ignorance or denial of the existence of racial inequality is itself a form of oppression. This age calls for a fundamental change in the manner in which people relate to each other. And the effects of racism have lasted generations and will continue until we acknowledge our part and be ready to take action. One of the first things, and I think the easiest to do, is acknowledge that there's a problem and talk to one another and listen and make some friends. Forging strong relationships with people from all walks of life is an antidote to the corrosive disease of prejudice. So if you don't think you can do anything, you don't want to march on the streets or visit City Hall or go down to Ottawa, there is something you can do at home, is make some friends. Make some friends with people that you had no dealings with before. I think that's a good start for an action. Baha'u'llah says, "Deal ye with one another with the utmost love and harmony, with friendliness and fellowship." He says, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. That's the power of unity. Another solution. It is impossible to build a truly just and peaceful world when we are not honestly self-examining ourselves and our culture. So that is something all of us can do. Look within yourself. Look within your culture. Ask some really deep questions. Do you have a sense of, the other, those other people? Is that in your language? Are you speaking like that? Do you designate other people as, those people? Are we living in a just society for all? Maybe for some of us, is it really, truly for all? Are we denying the impact of racism? Or have you ever said or maybe you believe that, hey, let's just get over that. That's just all in the past. Have you asked yourself that? Maybe we should. How can we effect a transformation if we continue to adopt the perspectives, the practices, the concepts, and the language of this racialized society that we're living in? We have to do something different. Speech is the best way. And what are the different forms and manifestations of racial prejudice in our everyday lives? We have to wake up to that in order to make a change. And then, once we are committed, okay, yes, we do need to make some changes. Once we are committed to eliminating racial prejudice, it will cause a movement towards the creation of a new society. It is the beginning of the change. And then, once we are committed to eliminating racial prejudice, then we will see a change in all structures. Mental structures, scientific, technological, educational, economic, social, including a complete change in the very concepts of political leadership and power. We can effect great, great changes. Baha'u'llah says, "Know ye not why we created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder this at all times in your hearts, how we were created. Since we have created you all from the same dust, from the same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, and to eat with the same mouth, and to dwell in the same land." We have a ways to go. The first thing we could do is go to each other's homes and have some food, and then you have that sense of what it's like to really be united as people. We need a humble posture of learning. The best way to make a change and seek this justice that we all want is to follow a model of learning, and that is action, reflection, consultation, and study. And that's a model that the Baha'i Faith uses in order for us to effect the kind of changes we want to see in the world. Do some action, study it, see how it's going, see how we can improve it, and consult with more people, study, action, reflection. It's a cycle of learning, and it's that mode of learning that all of us should be on. So some of this, what does this learning look like? How are we able to break through the stereotypes that is in our culture? What can we learn from each other? Which communities in the world are doing a really good job? Which nations can honestly say, we have no racism in our culture? What can we learn from them? Are there any? It's a good question. How can we share the outcome of this consultation that we're having with others? And at what age can we pass this on to our children? How can spiritual awakening and education be brought about by independent investigation of truth? What does that look like? And how can we make leadership more effective by providing insights into cultures and how societies operates? How will all individuals be given the opportunity to realize their inherent potential and thereby contribute to that ever-advancing civilization? And how can the learning be fostered in the family, the home, and the community? These are some of the questions that we are asking, and these are some of the questions we welcome others to ask and consult with us. We really have to be all together on this, folks. Okay, one more. Abdu'l-Baha, which is Baha'u'llah's son, says, "Let all associate, therefore, in this great human garden, even as flowers grow and blend together side by side without discourse or without disagreement between them." Isn't that just like the flowers in the background, where it may be all different hues and different colors, but we can certainly associate wonderfully together. So just to leave it alone, this painting, this was by my granddaughter, and I saw that and I said, that's the only way we should identify people with color. And you can recognize me, I'm the one with the glasses. And the little bitty one, that was their newborn. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you again for this.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for that perspective. We greatly appreciate that. And I just misspoke at the beginning. So if you have a question, Rizwan at the front has the cards, so you can collect them from him and fill them out, and we'll be able to get through some of those at the end. So next, we are going to go to the Buddhism perspective, and we're going to hear from Ren Shelmaschuk. So Ren was blessed to be born and raised at the confluence of the Fraser and Nechaco rivers on the traditional ancestral lands of the Lheidli T'enneh, to a Catholic family who instilled a strong love of God, family, and faith. She works as a high school teacher after completing the Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor's of Education degrees at UNBC and a Master's of Education from Thompson Rivers University. She also has completed a 200-hour yoga teacher training in 2018 and teaches yoga weekly. In addition, Ren is an ordained minister through the Universal Life Church as of February 2021. She first heard about Buddhism and became a Buddhist in her first undergraduate degree and has been exploring Mahayana Buddhism, also known as the Universal Vehicle, ever since. This branch of Buddhism focuses on finding Buddhahood and enlightenment through service to others by following the path of the Bodhisattva. Hopefully I said that right. So please join me in welcoming Ren for a Buddhist perspective. And just a reminder that we'll have 10 minutes and I'll be timing, so hopefully no one gets mad at me when I put up the little 10-minute card that you're out of time.
All right, can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Hello and good afternoon. I am so honored to be with you all here on the wonderful lands of Lheidli T'enneh. My name is Ren, and I am neither monk nor nun, but a lay practitioner and student of Buddhism. Before I begin my discourse, I want to address the privilege and the responsibility that I hold by virtue of my skin color, social standing, and education. I recognize that I am speaking to you all from this place of power and privilege, and that I have never known what racism truly feels like, nor will I. But with that, I aim to listen well to my brothers and sisters and siblings of their experience and needs, and then to use whatever privilege I may have to help and to further peace, understanding, and love in the world. I also don't claim to be an authority on Buddhism, racism, or sociology, but what I seek to offer you this afternoon is wisdom distilled from the teachings of Shakyamuni Gautama Buddha, and the great teachers and community members from all ages and places, and specifically tonight, Thich Nhat Hanh's work of engaged Buddhism. So there's a little roadmap. We'll start by exploring the Buddhist understanding of reality, just as an antidote to and a way of healing racism, followed by a little brief introduction to what is Buddhism, who is the Buddha, what is the nature of reality, and that will bring us to some concepts of interbeing and how engaged Buddhism can help us both heal ourselves and the rifts that divide us. So racism is injustice and a weapon wielded by those in power to maintain their power. It is a sickening and heartbreaking part of our current society, whether we want to admit it's real or not. And the Buddha teaches about the nature of reality and how to prevent being caught up in the illusions we create, like the idea that the melanin in your skin or religious background or gender or anything makes someone better or worse than others. The Buddha teaches that we are all one, existing in a state the late Venerable Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. He also teaches the nature of impermanence. this ever-changing nature of reality can give us hope that even what seems so deeply entrenched in the sociological and psychological systems we have created will change too. So Buddhism has existed for a little over 2,500 years after a very rich prince in the Sakya region of northern India, Siddhartha Gautama, left his palace, riches, family, and power to discover for himself the secret to inner peace and enlightenment. Prince Siddhartha became Shakyamuni Buddha in order to provide a way out of suffering for all beings. And Buddhism is a religion and a philosophy built upon the realization of one man's path to understand and end suffering. What heartens me is that its founder was not a god or a prophet or celestial being. The Buddha, as he came to be known, was a man like any other. And the term Buddha means simply one who is awake, awake to the sources of suffering, awake to the sources of healing, one who has become enlightened and leads others on the path of awakening to their own innate Buddhahood. So it's clear that there is much suffering in the world, and the root of this suffering is related to our own perceptions and mistaken identifications with the world around us and even with ourselves. The word samsara is used to describe the world as we usually encounter it. Cyclical patterns we repeat that bring us temporary happiness, but also waves of suffering. To put it very simply, our attachment and clinging to the way we want things to be and the resulting suffering of having it not be so is this nature of samsara. The patterns of our behaviors and ideas, so long as they are unconscious to us, perpetuate this suffering. Luckily, there is an antidote, nirvana. It is the opposite way to encounter the world, embodies freedom, bliss, love, and wisdom. And we enter into this nirvana by correcting these mistaken ideas and ideologies through the practices of mindfulness, ethical living, and wisdom. We come to see the nature of reality as ever-changing and that even we ourselves are not fixed identities. So the term interbeing was created by Thich Nhat Hanh to describe the interconnectedness of everything. He famously describes the presence of a cloud in a piece of paper to demonstrate the idea. And I would love to do that for you, but I feel like I might be getting the slip of paper a little bit too early before I finish. So we'll talk about that another time, I hope. But breaking down the boundaries and barriers of ourselves is a key teaching in Buddhism. An-atman, or no self, is often taken nihilistically, but really truly means no separate self. When you look for your singular and discrete reified self, you won't find it. We are ribbons of being, and letting go on the tight hold of I, me, mine lets the space develop to allow others to be as they are. We are not isolated packets that exist in a vacuum of striving, but ever-changing clouds of ideas, histories, stories, and flesh that interweave with each other endlessly. How can we even begin to hold the ideas of hatred or anger when we realize it is our fellow brother, sister, sibling, even realizing it is but ourselves that we are looking at? We are each interbeing with everything and everyone around us now. The air in the room we share in our breath, the food that we will eat will become our bodies, and even that your presence here makes my presence here possible. And this new understanding becomes the basis of wisdom and compassion that is each of our own innate Buddha nature. Here we can begin to understand the ways in which engaged Buddhism can help heal ourselves and our world. Thich Nhat Hanh developed engaged Buddhism as a response to the atrocities he witnessed in the Vietnam War. It is a dharma practice, or an application of the Buddhist teachings to your everyday life, and it flows from this understanding of no self and impermanence. There are 14 precepts in this practice, and I won't go through them, but they basically outline the ideas of ethical living, non-harming, non-hoarding, generosity and compassion, the importance of mindfulness, and developing equanimity even in the face of adversity and anger. And of course, the importance of remaining open to new ideas. And perhaps the most extraordinary is the first precept, that there is no absolute truth, and that we should never bind ourselves to a singular way of looking at the world. It is vital to be willing to see the world from another's perspective, and to be able to change your beliefs and ideas and leave behind what would create divisions or the danger of self-righteousness. Thich Nhat Hanh used these precepts to find love even for those who stood to destroy his country. It fostered in him strength and peace to build infrastructure for the villages destroyed in the fighting. And engaged Buddhism brought the monastic community into the villages to help rebuild and repair the physical, let alone spiritual and emotional damage caused by the war. Engaged Buddhism is about bringing the strength and peace that we cultivate into the world to offer what is needed to whomever needs it, be it through protests, building new infrastructure, writing letters, calling out injustice as we see it. It all matters and it all makes a difference. Changing the world, ending racism and the divisions we perceive to be real starts with a deep understanding of what is real, followed by the strength and wisdom to act correctly. It begins when we cultivate wisdom, compassion, and peace within, that we may have the inner reserves to do the work and be a model to show others the way out. And to close, I offer a quote from Melvin MacLeod, the editor-in-chief of a preeminent Buddhist periodical called The Lion's Roar, in his article, No Self, No Suffering. And it turns out that one of the very best things we can do for others is to be happy and whole ourselves. When we are not driven by our small, mistaken sense of who we are skillful, resilient, and caring, and we radiate love and joy. We show others that happiness is possible. By practicing, we diminish suffering not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. And in fact, the benefit goes much farther, beyond our own lives, beyond the people that we know. They apply to human society as a whole and will help cure its ills. Thank you very much for your time and attention this evening.
Thank you so much, Ren, for that Buddhism perspective and for being exactly 10 minutes in your presentation. We're now going to hear the Christian perspective from Reverend Robert Filler. Reverend Bob hails from the Isle of Newfoundland and brings with him that East Coast sense of hospitality, humor, and fun. He is a graduate of the Memorial University in Newfoundland and Labrador, Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and Chicago Theology College in Chicago, Illinois. Over the years, he has also been an internship supervisor, congressional consultant, mentor, and served on almost every committee you can think of at all levels of the church. Most recently, he was published in Reflections on Emancipation and Anti-Black Racism in Canada, and in Called to be the Church, Discipleship, and is Stewardship. In 2022, his sabbatical took him to Scotland and the UK, focusing on sacred places, music, and a wee dram. His passion is preaching and using digital resources to live out the Great Commission of Jesus to make disciples, along with his spouse, 2 children, grandchildren. No, really? Jeez. And Prin the dog. He lives a full life that loves to go for coffee. Oh, sorry. He roasts his own beans, and his favorite quote is, "There's an app for that, and we have the technology." So please join me in welcoming Reverend Bob.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. I want to start my time with you as well as acknowledging that I have the privilege of being with you as a settler that didn't ask permission to be here, but rather assumed I had the right to be here in the traditional unceded ancestral territory of the Lheidli T'enneh. I like to remind myself and my community that the Lheidli T'enneh have been stewards of this piece of Turtle Island for over 9,000 years, according to the archaeological record. It's a long time before I showed up. Combating racism. So there's some pieces about me that you need to know in order to kind of put some context to what I'm going to share with you. The first one is that within the Christian tradition, there are many, many branches. Even within the broader understanding of Christian, there are two main branches. One is Protestantism and one is Catholicism. Even within Protestantism, there are further branches that break off, and then there's particularly those that claim to be part of the Reformed tradition, of which the United Church of Canada would trace its lineage. And even within that, there are further subdivisions. So to speak on behalf of Christianity is not something I'm brave enough to do. But I will speak on behalf of my tradition, my part of that tradition, and my experience within it. So to give that a little bit more context, you need to know that I would identify myself as a process theologian, solidly finding their home amongst liberation theologies and the progressive bent of Christianity. In other words, I tend to live in a fairly small tent. The other folks around it tend to be a lot louder. But here's the piece that dawned on me as I was getting ready for this afternoon, and that's this. You can't even begin to have this conversation about racism until you're willing to own the reality that your own tradition has been used as a weapon. Christianity has been weaponized. There's no way getting around that. There's no delusion about it. To say otherwise is to be naive and be ostrich-like, sticking your head in the sand going, la, 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 I don't want to hear that. Christianity has been twisted, manipulated, I would argue misinterpreted, and used to create racist ideologies and philosophies. I need to own that in order to be able to be here. Not only has my tradition been weaponized, but the texts of my tradition have been weaponized. And they have a long, long history of being weaponized and edited and re-edited, particularly as being anti-Semitic. I can't talk about racism without acknowledging that reality. And I challenge all of us to do exactly that. Until you've stood in that truth, it's really hard to talk about anything that comes next. Charles Wesley, the founder of Methodism in the United Kingdom, is famous for saying that racism isn't denounced in the Bible, therefore he could neither condemn it. If the Bible doesn't do it, then neither can I. At least that's how he spent most of his life. It's interesting that towards the end of Wesley's life, he changed his tune. And all of a sudden, it was possible to denounce racism and have a different reading of Scripture, one that didn't back it up, one that didn't propagate it or encourage it. A colleague of mine says racism is heresy. Heresy is anything that is counter to the good of God, counter to the tradition, and unfounded in Scripture. Racism is heresy. I do not believe that there is such a thing as a Christian racist. You cannot be Christian and racist at the same time. It's impossible. It's delusional thinking. You can be Christian, you can be racist, but you can't do both. At least, I don't think you can do both. So if I look at my tradition and if I say, well, what is there within the Christian tradition that guides me, that causes me to try to use my voice to amplify the voices and experiences and wisdom of others when it comes to their experience of racism, which is something I have not experienced. I'm a bearded, white, middle-aged, well-educated dude who identifies the way they express and present. I'm the epitome of privilege. So the best I can do is lend my voice. Here's a couple of pieces from the Christian scriptures. The first one comes from the book of the Gospel of Matthew. It's chapter 25, verse 40. Truly I say to you, this is quoting Jesus, as you did it to one of the least of my siblings, you did it to me. From Luke 10:27, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. From Romans 13:8, owe no one anything except to love one another, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. And from Romans 13:10, love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. See, at the heart of the teachings of Jesus is this notion that creation is good. All humanity, each and every one of us, all of our various expressions and identities and orientations, they all come together to form the mosaic and tapestry of God's reality embodied in human form. Christ holds that all together for those of us that follow the path of Jesus. Like a body that has many different parts, but one body. If that is true, if love of God and love of neighbor are the foundational teachings, if embracing the neighbor as the self is a foundational teaching, then how in the world can I be racist and Christian at the same time? So I'm going to end my time with this idea. We talk about racism, and typically the response when I'm in gatherings such as this with folks is that someone inevitably comes, and says something akin to this: Bob, I want to share something with you, and I want you to know I'm not a racist. And I'm like, that's good. I'm not sure any of us show up and say, Bob, I want to share something with you. By the way, I'm a racist. Well, I guess there is a group that does that, but they wear different outfits. Right? They've worn different uniforms throughout history. Some of them started off with brown shirts. Being not racist doesn't cut it. In today's world, honestly, that's not enough. Rather, I would challenge us not just to combat racism, but to actually be anti-racist. Don't smile and nod your head and kind of chuckle along with that joke we all know is racist. Like, it's that easy, folks. Stop letting racism be okay. For me, racism is an insult to the Christian tradition. It is heresy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Bob Filler. Great perspectives again from our Christian perspective. We are going to be moving. Oh, I'll also say thank you for being under 10 minutes. We are going to be moving into our Islam perspective. And we have Maulana Umran ul-Haq Bhatti. Umran ul-Haq Bhatti is a missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. Umran acquired his degree in Islamic theology and comparative religions in 2013. He has served in Ghana, Atlantic Canada, and Toronto. During his 4 years in Atlantic Canada, he was a monthly columnist writing for the local newspaper in removing misconceptions about the peaceful teachings of Islam and building bridges in the community. Currently, he is the Imam of the Batur Rahman Mosque in Delta, BC. He has served as an Imam and missionary for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the Calgary branch at the Baitan Nur Mosque from 2013 to 2015. And for the last 4 years, he was serving as Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Jamaica, West Indies, in the capacity of missionary in charge. He was recently appointed to serve the British Columbia chapters and the community based around Batur Rahman Mosque in Delta and Surrey. And he is currently living in Delta with his family, his wife, and 2 children. So please join me in welcoming Uman.
Well, I have to give it to you because there's a lot of tough words in there. For first time who's doing it, you did a heck of a good job. So props to that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the ever merciful. Brought up in the United States, Malcolm X had seen and suffered from the systematic racism against the African Americans all his life. Soon he became a prominent leader of the Black separatist movement. He believed that white people could not be allies of black people in the struggle for justice and equality. Yet, when he, for the very first time, when he took the pilgrimage and went to Saudi Arabia, Mecca, to perform the annual Hajj, the pilgrimage, he writes from Mecca in his book. He states, "During the past 11 days here in the Muslim world, I have eaten from the same plate, drunken from the same glass, and slept on the same rug, while praying to the same God, with fellow Muslims whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. And in the words and in the deeds of the white Muslims, I felt the same sincerity that I felt among the black African Americans, Muslims of Nigeria, Sudan, and Ghana. We were truly all the same brothers, because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitude." Here, what he means by white is the racism he strove against in his life, the racism that was prevalent in this very day and age. And furthermore, he writes, "I could see from this that perhaps if white Americans could accept the oneness of God, then perhaps too they could in reality accept the oneness of man, and seize the measure and hinder and harm others in terms of their difference in color." So the wisdom and the idea that God is one in a statement of the fundamental nature of humanity. Then if God is one, then we all share the same origin, and no one can claim superiority over another. This statement finds its greatest manifestation in the very last sermon, which is known as the Hujjatul Wida, the farewell sermon given by the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, where more than 100,000 people were present. And this is where he states, "You are all brothers and are all equal. None of you can claim any privilege or any superiority over another. An Arab is not to be preferred to a non-Arab, nor is a non-Arab to be preferred to an Arab, nor is a white man to be preferred to a colored one, or a colored one to a white, except on the basis of righteousness." Furthermore, Islam is hence the religion of brotherhood par excellence. It uproots the very notion of racism. The concept of Tawheed, or the oneness in Islam, also establishes that God has no body, shape, or form. It states in the Holy Quran, in chapter 112, that there is nothing like unto him. The moment God manifests himself in any shape, form, or human being, then he is not God. Why? Because if God, for example, chooses to manifest himself as a human being, then he will have to choose a color other than the automatically considered superior than anything else. And in the Holy Quran, in chapter 112, it states, Islam, on the other hand, presents a God who is the one and only, the independent and beside of all. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is nothing like unto him. Furthermore, in chapter 49, verse 14, it states, O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and we have made you into tribes and sub-tribes, that you may recognize one another. Indeed, the most honorable among you in the sight of Allah is the one who is most righteous among you. We are certainly different in terms of how we look, how we speak, or in terms of our different nationalities or our social status, But these differences are not a means of superiority, neither inferiority. Another place it states that God Almighty has made it clear in this verse that our nationality and ethnic background acts as a means of identifying each other. They do not entail or validate any form of superiority or or being higher than anyone else in any kind of form. The only criteria that is mentioned in the Holy Quran that God will judge you is based on righteousness. And righteousness is something which only God can evaluate and judge. It is above the realm of any human being to know how pious or sincere another person is. God furthermore elaborates another reference in the Holy Quran in chapter 30, verse 23. It states that, and among his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your tongues and colors. In that surely are signs for those who possess knowledge. The diversity of tongues and colors have been called signs of God, which means that all the different languages and different skin colors are to be respected at all cost. If we mock people based on how they speak or how they look or how they eat or what kind of food they're eating, we'll be rejecting the signs of God. But Islam did not only rely on verbal declaration, but also implementing practical steps such as Salat, which is the 5 daily prayers that Muslims observe throughout the day. It doesn't matter if you're in a mosque in Africa, in Canada, in Pakistan, or in India. If there are multiple nationalities, they will all be standing in one row. There won't be any distinction that the rich should be in the first row and the middle class in the second row and the poor class in the last row. Everybody will stand in the same row, shoulder to shoulder, knees to knees, praying to one God. And it could also be that the boss and the worker are standing together, or the co-worker is in the first row and the boss is in the last row, so on and so forth. Such is the beauty of the Islamic prayer that removes all sorts of racism and practical reminds every believer 5 times a day. Then we have practical examples set by the holy founder of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Nowadays we hear many hurtful comments with regards to immigrants. We often call them foreigners, the outsiders, or aliens. But let me show you that how the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, gave us concrete evidence and through his noble example and how we can eradicate racism. For example, Hazrat Salman, who is known as the Persian, a non-Arab companion to the Holy Prophet of Islam. Majority of the companions were Arabs. Hazrat Salman, the Persian companion, was an outsider, a foreigner, and an immigrant. During the Battle of the Trenches, Muslims dig a trench which was not in their habits, and this suggestion and recommendation was given by him. When they decided to dig the trench, the Holy Prophet of Islam, for every 40 meters, made groups of 10 companions to dig the trench in that area. And he organized the groups according to their families and their tribes. Salman the Persian needed also to be put in a team or allocated with somebody. Now the issue came up as to where he was going to be placed. Everyone, of course, naturally wanted to be in the family or close vicinity of the Holy Prophet of Islam. But the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, chose Hazrat Salman Farsi to be in his company, to be in his family, so they can continue the work afterwards. This was the attitude and this was the example that was placed to us by the Holy Founder of Islam. Regardless of his social status, Prophet Muhammad gave high positions to many of his companions. For example, Hazrat Usama, peace be upon him, who was a free slave, was made a leader and commander of an army under whom many prominent companions were serving. Another companion is Hazrat Bilal, was a black slave from Habsha, which is modern-day Ethiopia. Once free, the Holy Prophet of Islam appointed him to serve the mosque by using his melodious voice to call the 5 daily prayers, which is called or known as the Azan. He was a black man, and for some, his blackness made him unfit for such an honor. On one occasion, a companion of the Holy Prophet came up to Bilal and said, "You are a son of a black woman." And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, quickly said, "Are you taunting him about his black mother? There is still some influence of ignorance in you, and you need to much work on your attitude." The ignorance the Prophet identified was rooted in the misguided views that a person's race reflect his or her moral character or social status. At another location, another narration of the Holy Prophet of Islam, that afterwards, when this was done, the companion went to look for Hazrat Bilal to apologize and seek his forgiveness. And when he found him, he bowed down and he put his head where his feet were. And he said, "O Bilal, I am not going to lift my head until you don't step on me and forgive me." Bilal very lovingly lifted his head and kissed his forehead and said, "How can I step on a head which only bows down to the oneness of God?" Hence, Islam is a religion which completely rejects the very notion of Islam. At the end, I would like to end my presentation with a quotation of the holy founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the latter-day promised Messiah and Imam Mahdi. He states that, "My countrymen, a religion which does not inculcate universal compassion is no religion at all. Similarly, a human being without the faculty of compassion is no human at all. Our God has never discriminated before between one people and another. This is illustrated by the fact that all the potentials and capabilities which have been granted to the Aryans and also been granted to the races inhabiting Arabia, Persia, Syria, China, Japan, Europe, and America." So with this quotation, I end my presentation and look forward to the rest of the speakers on this very interesting and educating topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, man, on that overview of the Islam perspective. Everyone's staying on within their 10 minutes. I'm going to make one slight change. So rather than going to Dr. Pranish Kumar, we're going to go to Mr. Eli Klasner, just to be respectful of the sunset time. So we're going to be hearing from the Jewish faith perspective, Mr. Eli Klasner. So Eli was born and raised in Toronto and earned degrees in economics and music from Queen's University, the University of Toronto, and the University of Ottawa. He has been a resident of North Central British Columbia since 2016, where he is involved in nonprofit leadership. Eli is a member of the Chabad of downtown Vancouver and the Chabad Lubavitch of Crown Heights, New York City. He studies Torah, Talmud, and Chassidus, primarily under the tutelage of Rabbi Binyamin Bitton of Vancouver. Starting in 2017, Eli began the process of identifying and connecting with Jewish residents of this vast area of British Columbia. This was accomplished through exploring personal networks and social media. Eli enjoys information sharing and creating meeting opportunities for the Jewish populations of the region. The 2016 census indicates a Jewish population of approximately 150 people. And he is spearheading organizing annual holidays and festival celebrations. His dream is to help establish a dedicated meeting of worship and worship space that will serve a wide spectrum of Jewish residents in northern British Columbia. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Eli Klasner.
Thank you, Corey. So I am a terrible public speaker. I'm not at all comfortable doing this. And I'm very honored to find out I'm the first Jew to participate in this. That's a lot of pressure, and I'm sitting in front of the cross, so that's, that's that's something. By the way, my name is misspelt in the program. It's Eli. El in Hebrew means God, so no, it's Eli. Thank you. I'm going to share with you some things that might be hard to hear. I'm going to be honest with you up front. But the good news is, Jews have always used humor as a way of telling our story. So if I make a joke, it's not out of disrespect. This is a way that we have learned through the centuries to process a lot of pain. So on that note, combating racism. So a minister, a rabbi, and an imam walked into a bar together, and the bartender looked at them and said, "What is this, a joke?" In Prince George, that could happen. No one would think twice about it, but in some places, yeah, maybe not. Combating racism, or as my community likes to call it, Jewish history. The Jewish New Year starts in just a few hours. That's why I have to be home at sunset, Rosh Hashanah. We're going into the year 5783. And for us, it's not just the Jewish New Year, we're celebrating the creation of the world. So it's New Year for everyone, starting at sunset. But Jewish holidays, all Jewish holidays and festivals can be summed up in 3 sentences. They tried to kill us, it didn't work, let's eat. Combating anti-Semitism. So, I mean, there's a couple of definitions of combat. One includes aggression, violence, military action. The other one is a more peaceful way of ensuring that something stops or doesn't occur. I think, you know, there was something that happened on TV. I don't watch TV, I don't own a TV, but there's a TV show called The View. And last year, as far as I can see from the show, people sit around a table, they yell at each other and they insult each other, but every now and then something interesting comes out of it. So there's an actress by the name of Whoopi Goldberg. Now her real name is Karen Johnson, but apparently when she was young, she thought, well, I'll take a Jewish sounding name and it'll help me in Hollywood. It may have worked. But she said something. She said the Holocaust was not about race. It wasn't about race. She said it was about mankind's hatred for others. And so the internet blew up. People were like, how could you say something so terrible? It's so untrue. Of course the Holocaust was about racism. Jews everywhere, including myself, we got onto the internet and said, "Arr." But it took me some time to think about it. And I came to the conclusion, in fact, she's right. What is racism? Racism is hatred from one group to another based on fear, based on the chance that your power, your authority is going to be taken away from you. And you know, there's basically 3 types of anti-Semitism. The first one is political. The Jews have too much power, they have too much money, let's make a bunch of laws so they don't have that power anymore. There's religious anti-Semitism. Jews aren't following the dominant religion, let's force them to convert. The third one, of course, is racial anti-Semitism, and the solution for that was the final solution, extermination. And I want to share with you a story. In 1938, there was a man in Krakow, Poland named Jacob Klasner. Jacob was married to Rivka, and he had 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. In 1940, Jacob Klasner and his family and his 4 children was sent to the Jewish ghetto in a city called Łódź in Poland. In 1942, Jacob and his wife and now his 5 children were put on a cattle train, and they were sent to a place called Treblinka. The 5th child was a baby girl, an infant, named Sarah Klasner, my mother. I don't know if you know about Treblinka. Treblinka was not a work camp. Treblinka existed to kill Jews. In 15 months, approximately 900,000 Jews were murdered. When you arrived at Treblinka, you were dead within 60 minutes. You were put into 2 corridors, men and women, walked towards the gas chamber. The gas chamber was made to look like a synagogue, so people would walk in. Somewhere along that corridor, Sarah Klasner was rescued. Somebody intervened, the hand of God. And so my natural instinct is to hate Germans, to hate Europeans. But what I've learned over the years was to love the people who saved Jews, who saved little baby Sarah Klasner, a German, a Pole, a Catholic, a Protestant, who can say? And so over the years, this has been part of my journey to fight the instinct to hate, but actually find the miracles where you can actually love. Sarah Klasner lived until 2020. She passed away at the age of 78. In Judaism, we believe in something called tikkun olam in Hebrew, which means we're all here to heal the world. And I like to think because of some brave, courageous Christian, Sarah Klasner, the Jew, did something to help heal the world. And I'm here, I'm alive today because of that miracle, the people who fought the bigotry, put themselves at great risk to save people. The God of the Israelites did not say, go out and hate. The God of the Israelites, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, were taught something called love, ahava, love your neighbor. The God of the Israelites taught something for the first time called peace, shalom. The God of the Israelites taught about ethics, the way you should run your business. The God of the Israelites gave rules about how you should raise your family, the food that you should eat that's healthy. 6 days of the week, you're partners with God in creation, but 1 day of the week, the seventh day a week, rest, enjoy life, enjoy the world that you've helped creating. I think a second generation Holocaust survivor learning to love people who are different is one of the greatest joys ever. In fact, I've never met a German I didn't like. You know, there's always this conspiracy theory that the Jews are going to take over the world. But I'll tell you, if you've ever been in a room full of Jews, you know, we can't even agree on what kind of potato salad to eat, let alone how we're going to take over the world. That's the end of my speech. Thank you so much for sharing this moment.
Thank you so much, Ellie, for the perspective on the Jewish faith and for joining us for the first time on this panel. It's very important that we have multiple perspectives, and so I'm just very appreciative that we can include this perspective today for the 17th World Religions Conference. So next we are going to go to Dr. Pranesh Kumar from the Hindu faith perspective. Dr. Pranesh Kumar was born in a Hindu family of a northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. He's keenly interested in literature of religion, culture, science, and its global impact, in particular on human society. He is fascinated by the diversities which he experienced during the vast travels, interactions with people, and observing their social, cultural, and religious events. Kumar values life in any form and believes in very ancient preach and practice Sanskrit saying, I'm going to try my best on this, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the entire world is one family. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pranesh Kumar.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Councillor Corey. I'm sorry I didn't teach you Sanskrit when you were in UNBC. So that's why you could not speak that. So when I entered here and I saw their poster on this one, there were 4 faces of different colors. And I saw there were some 4 lines of the dots like the tears coming from their eyes. And it was written there, the World Religion Conference Combating the Racism. So it was not when I entered, I saw not those 4 faces, I saw so many different faces here. And no 2 people looked to me as the same. So we all accept that we are outsidely, when we see, we are the different. But are we really what we look from outside? So if you remove that, let's say we are having these outfits. You are having different type of outfit, I am having different type of outfit. Similarly, our body is kind of an outfit, and we are not the outfit, which is body, we are the soul. And soul of everyone has the different color of outfits, including the body and these physical things manufactured by the designers, fashion designers, right? And what are the qualities of that? If we all are soul, what is a soul? So soul nobody has seen, as we don't know what is God, who is God. The same way we say that soul is identified by its qualities. And we consider those qualities according to our Hindu religion, and I think most of all other religions, that they are the purity, kindness, love, that kind of thing. They all are positive. They are energies. Energy goes everywhere in the form of the vibrations. Nothing can stop in the world. Even the iron walls cannot stop that. Energy will always, vibrations will flow everywhere. So whatever we are doing, we are not creating that energy, positive or negative, only here, but all over the universe, entire universe. So I think I can start because we don't have much time on that. So I think, can you go to the first page, please? First one, where the first slide. Yeah, here. You can see there is a symbol here. So when we start anything, we start with this word, and this symbol is known as OHM, Om, or you can simply say OM, Om. So this is a representation of the God, and it was thought about 3 millennia years ago, about 3,000 years ago, how to represent or conceive the God. So they say this, and always they start Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti means peace. God, peace, peace, and peace only. So if there is a peace, there will be no negative energy in the world. So what we have to do is, according to this culture of values, if we generate only one quality in ourselves, peace, then no negative energy can ever take place on this universe, according to them, if we all practice that, because it will be all positive vibrations everywhere. Please go to the next one. So as we all have seen that, so many efforts have been done for this problem of racism. But the thing is it really working? We have very strong countries in the world, very advanced in all terms, whatever we can think by technology or money or the strength and this thing, but are we able to control that? See, we are trying to educate at every stage and to make people aware that there is a problem. See, when we have a disease, we know a disease, then we go for its treatment. But racism, possibly everyone in the world or the people like me, you and others, they think it doesn't exist. But in reality, it is more than a pandemic, if you look at that. See, we have a disease, we develop the vaccinations and the treatment for that. But we have not accepted this as a disease of the society. So even from these people, they have said, UNESCO Director General, they have racism exists everywhere. Please come to the next slide. And the United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights said, we will fight against all kind of discriminations and the racism, but as we see, evidence is otherwise. It's opposite direction. Everywhere we see that it is increasing. I didn't face racism at any stage. I live in 6 countries for many, many years. And I was for them totally different persons. Not wearing what they wear, what they speak, what they eat. Everything was different. But they all accepted me. Right? So, but unfortunately, we are some people which don't understand, and I think it is not their blame. We know there are some factors like the social factors or maybe the health factors which affect the thinking. Everything what we do in our social behavior comes from our thoughts. How thoughts are created? Thoughts are created what we feed to our body, what we feed in terms of the information or the food, kind of food or drink we take, or the company or the environment. Everything is like our food for the thoughts. So thoughts result into the behavior, social behavior, which we see in terms of the actions, words, deeds. So this is what happening because, and so this is a disease. I will say this is a disease and it has to be treated like a disease. So please come to the next one. Mahatma Gandhi in India is well known. He's known as the father of the nation because he, in the freedom for the country, he contributed a different style of that thing. He said that we have to look for the rights of the women that time in the society and the ethnic harmony, religious harmony, and there were some injustices because of the caste system, so he very strongly condemned all of them and worked to eradicate everything from there. Please, next one. So when we come to this statement which Corey was telling, it's known Vasudev Kutumbakam. So it consists of 3 words. Vasudha. Vasudha in Sanskrit is earth. Vasudha Ev is Kutumbakam, family. So whole earth is a family. So it is like a oneness of all. So this concept was, and when we will be oneness of all, when we look, we are not one, we are different. We can count. So many people are here. But if you look at the soul, they are all same. So everyone has the same soul. So in terms of that concept, we can say that yes, oneness of all, or Vasudev Kutumbakam. If whole world is my family, in my family we have brothers, sisters. We don't make any discrimination among them, brother, sister. We don't create any hatred or jealousy or something like that to them. Whatever they are doing different thing. They are not doing what we are doing, but in spite of that, we don't create any hatred. So this is like a mantra which was told there about 3,000 years ago, and this was practiced. That's why India is not one society, as everyone knows. This is like an entire world. All continents are represented in that same country. Next one, please. So the principles or teachings, as we have seen, are, I think it's very small, it's difficult to see. We are united by a shared universal divinity and compassion and truth. I think maybe this is here is good for me. Compassion, truth must be foundation of our moral compasses. Exercise of discernment and selflessness in our interaction with the world is the only path that can bring about universal well-being. Next one, please. We have to realize that racism is an age-old and epidemic in nature. We have to acknowledge, as most of our speakers said, and we all know, it exists in our diverse communities. Must be mindful of our implicit racial biases and work through them. The best way is get to know the people so that we understand their backgrounds and embrace them for who they are as individuals rather than remaining like strangers. And in Prince George, we are very happy because we have seen, we don't have seen any kind of thing, at least I have seen everywhere we go, we have different all people here. Bridge any divides in communities, work together towards constructive and viable solutions to challenge and eradicate the institutionalized racism. I stand united against all forms of racism, hatred, prejudice, intolerance, act to achieve racial justice and equality. Next one, please. And of course, we have to listen, raise your voice, take actions, listen to all those who face racism, acknowledge, experience their experiences and the concerns, break the silence, stand united against all forms of racism, hatred, prejudice, and intolerance to achieve the justice and equality. Next, please. Next one, please. Mandate human rights education. So this is, I think, very, very important because if you want to, we say, if you want to repair a house, it is more difficult than building a new house. So what have to be done? The people at home, they have to learn these things. See, when a child is in a family born, he or she doesn't have any conception about any differences. Even they don't know how to speak. Their only language is just they smile and everything, purity, love, kindness, you can see from their faces. So what you write, they are clean slate. Whatever we write, we see, when we say we write, what they are seeing when they are growing up in the family. So they become like that. It is very important since the birth of a child, if they are known what are these values so that there is no differentiation and discriminations among the other type of people, that we are outside, we are different, but we are the same. And love, purity, kindness has to be there. And then they go to school. So school has a bigger role to play where they have all kids coming from the different cultures and different looks and outfits. So they learn most from there. So you can see the most of the people who go to school have the education. This doesn't come from them. Either they have some mental health problems, because of that it comes, or they are just like the ignored people or ignored kids with no parents or no guardians like that. So they become like that. Come to next one, please. I think we can go to next play. So these are, as we all know, national election plans are there. In some countries, they have made the legislations that it is a crime if racism is found there. I saw there was a couple of countries from Europe, they were listed there, and it's going to be as a legal thing. So this is the final slide where we have the role of family, school education, as I told, and entertainment is the most important one which we forget. Because what we do right now, when a kid is born, we just give the video games. And what are those video games? They are full of the violence. So from very beginning when they are growing up, they are shooting and killing the people or their enemies. So when they grow with this negative energy and kind of emotions, then what we can expect when they are grown up? And then entertainment is more thing. Media plays a so important role nowadays, and the health authorities have to take care of this health, because even whatever maybe if your health, mental health is not good, then certainly it's going to create a problems. And of course, government overall has to look after all these legal aspects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pranesh Kumar, for your the Hindu faith perspective. I especially appreciated the comment about the impact of media and entertainment at the end of your remarks. Next up, our last speaker is from the Sikh perspective, and we have Mr. Surjit Singh Minhas. Surjit Singh Minhas is an active member of the Guru Gobind Singh Sikh Temple, serving in Prince George since 1973 to residents by providing langar, a free meal to the public. Surjit moved to Prince George in 1973 from India. He has a degree, 2 degrees, a bachelor's of science and a bachelor of education from Punjab University, India. He worked in the lumber industry for 2 years and retired from BC Rail in December 2005. Now he volunteers for the temple and has been supporting charities, including donating his blood to Canadian Blood Services 73 times. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Surjit Singh Minhas.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅਵਲ ਅੱਲਾ ਨੂਰੋ ਪਾਇਆ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਕੇ ਸਭ ਬੰਦੇ एक नूर ते सब जग उपजया कौन भले को मंदे लोगा भरम न भूलो भाई खालक खलक खलक में खालक पूर रहो सब ठाए। God is love and love is God. Good afternoon, respected members of the panel and the audience. Our holy scripture is Sri Guru Granth Sahib. In English we call Sikh doctrine. It contains the teachings of Hindu, Muslim, and Sikh spiritual scholars. Today I like to share Sikh doctrine's view on racism. Racism is a sin because it separates us from God and from our fellow human beings. Racism is a radical evil that divides the human family and denies the new creation of a redeemed world. Practice of racism is contrary to the teaching of Sikh doctrine. The humanity which is split because of racism, color, caste, country, and creed of the people needs the message of Sikh doctrine for uniting it into one brotherhood, for everlasting peace without racism. The message of Sikh doctrine, page 97, states, Tu Sanja Sahib Baap Hamara means, you are the universal Father of all, O my Lord and Master, all people being his children from one multicultural brotherhood. This message of Sikh doctrine recognizes the whole human race as one. On page 871, Sikh doctrine gives the message of God within us. All human beings has the same genes and DNA as of God. It states, Kaho Kabir eh Ram ki ansh, means that God within us is formed of the same essence as of God. This God within us gave message to the whole humanity and recognize no distinction because of birth, gender, sexuality, status, caste, creed, color, country, or community. All are equal once we recognize all as one and equal. There leaves no room for racism or hate. These two verses of 6 scriptures explains that whole human race as a whole is one, and God resides in every human being on this earth. To understand God within us, one must understand the concept of God in 6 scriptures, which is totally different from the traditional concept of God. Many religions claim and affirm that God is one, but that God is separated from His creation, and they don't have the same definition of God and its mission on the human life. Whereas Sikh doctrine says God is everywhere and is in everyone on this earth. He is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscience. He is healing, governing, and running the system. On page 563, it states, Jalthal Mayir Reha Parapur, Nikt Vasa Nahi Prabdur, means he is totally pervading and totally pervading and permeating the water, the land, and the sky. Lord is near at hand, not far away. Sheikh Faridi, a Muslim scholar, gave this omnipresent concept of God in 12th century, almost 1,000 years ago. Page 186 explains where God resides within us. The Lord of unfathomable form has his place in our mind or conscious. Agam Rupka Man Mein Thana. Our inner conscious, our inner voice is God's voice. As per Sikh doctrine, page 628, Turki Bani Ai Tinsagli Chint Mitai. God within us have unlimited virtues. God within us have unlimited vices. Sikh doctrine propagate, page 598, renounce vices and seek virtues. Committing sins, you shall only come to regret and repent. Avgun shod, guna ko tavo, karaugun pashtahi jiyo. The pillars of Sikh doctrine to fight racism is Kirat karo means earning virtues, Naam japo means practice virtues, Vand shako means imbibing virtues. Achieving high consciousness is the goal of Sikh spiritual doctrine. The contribution of Sikh doctrine to fight racism and world peace lies in the principle that God exists in all human beings and there is no better religion than living humanity. So if all humans move beyond this attachment to any one religion and see light in all, then there will be no need to call ourselves Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Jews, etc. As on page 477, the Sikh doctrine says, Hindu, Turk, kahante aaye, kenne raah chalai, means where have the Hindu or Muslim came from? What put them on their different path? God created humans and human created different religions of different paths and different gods. Humans broke the God's law of one God, one humanity, and one religion. To fight racism, Sikh doctrine propagated over 550 years ago in Holy Scripture the concept of one God, one humanity, and one religion of whole humanity, as on page 1185. Eko dharam darada sach koi, gurmat pura jug jug soi, means there is only one religion, whole humanity. Let everyone grasp this truth. The religion is earn virtues, practice divine qualities, imbibe godly virtues. When we practice godly qualities in our life, we practice the religion. Anybody, believer or non-believer, of God can practice this religion of God, which is love God's creation because He lives in His creation. If all religions start speaking the language of love for all, start loving and care for others without distinction of caste, creed, gender, rich and poor, skin color, language, spoken, ethnicity, country, or any other dividing qualities, the racism and violence in the world can be significantly reduced. This will be the first large step to fight racism in the world. Selfless service to the humanity is the real worship of God, as on page 26. May God bless whole humanity. Nanak naam chaddi kala tere bhane, sarbat da bhala. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Surjit Sikamanhas. So I am going to provide some concluding remarks, and I just want to thank all of our speakers for their overviews on combating racism from each of their religious perspectives. Thank you so much. We'll say goodbye to Ellie Klasner as it is getting close to sundown, so thanks, Ellie. So we heard at the beginning, racism is an illness. The most important thing that we can do is acknowledge this issue. We heard that racism is an injustice created by those who hold power. I think we heard a little bit about nirvana from the Buddhist perspective, focusing on freedom, bliss, love, and wisdom. We heard from the Christian perspective. I think something that really struck me was Reverend Bob saying Christianity has been weaponized, used to create racist ideologies. And being not racist isn't enough. We need to be anti-racist. We heard from the Islam perspective. I think if you can accept the oneness of God, you can accept the oneness of man. I think as we share the oneness of God, I found that very profound. I think when Mr. Ellie Klasner went over the different types of anti-Semitism, I hadn't really considered that before, so I found that very enlightening. As we went through the Hindu perspective, we heard that we must treat racism like a disease. Let's see if I can read my own writing. We are united by a shared universal divinity. And we need to strengthen education for human rights. I thought that was a really great point. And then finally, concluding with our Sikh perspective, hearing that racism is a sin because it separates us, and focusing on achieving that higher consciousness will allow us to move beyond racism to see light in all. So there were some really great remarks. I will add, Reverend Bob mentioned at the beginning that this is being live streamed. So if there were some comments that you want to go back and look and re-listen to, you can find that on the Facebook page, I think. trinitypg.ca. So we did receive one question. So thank you so much for Rizwan for bringing this up. This is for each of our speakers. And the question, religious doctrine tends to promote the idea that the members of that religion are special while everyone else is somehow wrong or incorrect. This issue is, I can't read the word. I think it creates a lot of prejudice in the world as people are inclined to protect their communities and privilege. What are your respective communities actually doing to combat racism and prejudices? Does anyone want to start? I think we do have a microphone on the table. What within your own community? Yeah, that's a really great point. You know, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and even within Catholicism, there's lots of different various opinions on everything. So I don't know that everyone will be able to answer that one question specifically, because there'll be various schools of thought within each of the various religions. But perhaps if anyone wants to,
This is a very relevant question that came from you. See, in general, if we educate our kids and we educate ourselves that what we want from others, we have to do that for others. If we cultivate that and we make that as a principle or mantra for our life, our social behavior, possibly we will not be doing anything wrong.
Does anyone else want to add any comments about? Thank you, Iman.
Yes, thank you this is a very good question on what each community does to combat racism and how do we teach this onto our fellow beings. Representing Islam, in Islamic category states, La ikraha fid din, in the 2nd chapter of the Holy Quran, that there is no compulsion in religion. And Islam advocates the freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, and to practice any form of God or whoever you want to call God. And there is no coercion, there is no force. And in the very end of the Holy Quran, the Muslim scriptures, it also states that for you, your religion, for me, my religion. So in this aspect, when we look into this, we always try to accept every single background with different ethnic background, color, creed, or religion, and regardless of whatever they are coming from. But as mentioned in my speech as well, my presentation, that Islam is a religion that has many different walks of life, whether they're from the Indian continent, Asia, or from Asia, or from Ghana, or from Africa, from anywhere. Since I had the opportunity to serve in Ghana as well. So one of the biggest things that we do and Islam teaches us to be is that to be with them and to treat each and every member as a family member. And one of the tradition of the Holy Prophet of Islam is that like for yourself what you like for others as well, or like for others what you like for yourself. And this is the main key to success, pathway to peace, and how to limit the stereotype and to limit racism that we see in countries and in places in other nations as well. And when just my personal example, that while serving in Africa, you're able to, because of course with different culture that comes with different food and there's different things that they do. So the main thing is that when you're eating with them and when you're having conversation with them, as they mentioned, when you try to eat their own local food, when you try to speak their language, and when you try to dress up like them and have their own, and you respect the culture and you appreciate that, then they see that this is another average Joe like me and you, and they don't think that, you know, we're lower class or you're higher class. So these are all the teachings and practical examples that were given to us, mentioned in the Holy Quran, and taught to us by the Holy Founder of Islam, peace be upon him. Thank you.
Maybe time for one more comment before I got handed a note that dinner is ready. So we'll have perhaps one more comment, and then I'll do a final remark.
So I'm the comment before dinner. Okay. Thank you very much for that question. It is really very important. One of the things that Baha'u'llah said, like I said, this was well over a century ago. He said the age of unity is upon us. And this is not just uniting us and then we would be the chosen ones. That's not what he said. He says, do not look at others less than you. And that is people of other faiths, of different religions, different races, different class. That is what we are not supposed to see. So what are we doing practically about that? I think we are doing something that is very different. I also came from a Catholic background. I can't imagine any religion doing what we're doing. And that is we're asking people who are not Baha'is to lead our devotions. We're asking people who are not Baha'is to help teach the children and help us study. So everybody can study the words of Baha'u'llah. Everybody can come to our devotions, and non-Baha'is, people who are not Baha'is, even that, saying that, I should stop saying the word non-Baha'i. All of us will be able to lead devotions. So this age of unity, and this is why I said it's so important for us to meditate. What does that mean? What does that mean in this age where we're no longer dividing us between the churches? I mean, look at these wonderful people up here. I mean, we really are like one beautiful human garden. So that's what we're doing practically. And I know this is going to take many, many.
Okay, so sorry, we are going to be getting into dinner, and we will have the opportunity to dialogue with our speakers over dinner. So perhaps we'll move this into the dining hall. Before we do that, however, I do want to thank all of our panelists for contributing each of their perspectives to the 17th Annual World Religions Conference. And there is an envelope for each of the speakers as a thank you for their perspectives today and providing their remarks. We are going to be going into, there's an East Indian dinner. We're so grateful for that. And I have on my schedule, it says a vote of thanks by Mr. Khalid Khan, president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Prince George. So we'll have him up to do our vote of thanks. So thank you so much, everyone, and a big round of applause again for our speakers.
This note of thanks is going to be very brief. First of all, I would like to thank respected Corey Ramsey for moderating the event, 17th World Religions Conference, Prince George. Then I would also like to thank Mr. John Duncan, who represented the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I would also like to thank respected Kenora Stewart, who represented the chief of the Ledley Nation. And I would thank Ms. Charlotte Wenninger, representing Baha'i Faith, Ms. Ren Shelmashub, representing Buddhism, Reverend Bob K. Filler, representing Christianity, Maulana Umranul Haq Bhatti Sahib, representing Islam, Dr. Parnesh Kumar, representing Hindu faith, Mr. L. Klasner, representing Jewish faith, Mr. Surjit Singh Minhas, representing Sikh faith. I would also like to thank all of you for taking out your time to be part of this auspicious annual occasion. I would also deem it as an honor to thank Mr. Fahim Channa, Mr. Abdul Basit, Mr. Anwar Shah, Mr. Mubarak Ahmed, and Mr. Waqas Chima for traveling all the way from Vancouver to make this event possible. Last but not least, I would specially say that it is because of the tireless efforts of our regional president BC, Mr. Rizwan Pirzada, who worked not only for a few days, but for months to finally get to this day. I'm so honored to host them all as my guest in Prince George. Thank you very much. The dinner has ended. Thank you.